everybody, it's just me again. It's just come to do another chat and another video on the current process, and I want to keep speaking about it simply because we've had the whistleblowers report, fair enough, and that's come out, but it's come very quiet again, and I think it's important to keep the dialogue open and to keep the conversation going. I noticed that there's not really anybody in any significant places, like any responses from governments, local authorities or anything like that, answering to all of this either. But it is interesting, and like I said, it's great that the whistleblowers come out and said what they've said, but it practically in reality is it's literally is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, the delays, the lack of willingness to put anything down in email and on paper is mild compared to what quite a lot significant amount of us actually go through. The gaslighting, the having meetings and phone calls and being made out, and being told what in essence they think you want to hear, when the reality of it is it never happens. What we are told is always a fob off. It's never, yeah, this is genuine, that's going to happen, or there's never any productive reactive steps properly going forward about it all. And like I said, it's the tip of the iceberg, and what reality is there's a significant amount of people that go through far worse than just delays. The delays, the lack of putting things down in black and white is the milder side of it all, if I'm honest with you. The lengths that people are willing to go to deny children support in SEN is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and it's just not, it's not humane, if I'm honest. It's because at the end of the day, these actions that are taken impose suffering on our children. They impose trauma on our children. They're very, they're not, they go under this guise of safeguarding our children against abuse and harm, yeah, but it only ever seems to work one way. If half of the situations that actually happened coming out of school with our SEN children were happening as the children going to school, for example, if our children were distressed about being at home, if our children were having meltdowns at school because of the impact of home, we'd be scrutinised, we'd be safeguarded, we'd be under Section 747s, we'd have investigations, child protection conferences and all that lot. Yet when you flip it and a child is responding like that going into school, it's accepted, it's fine, and it's just a case of the child needs to try harder or needs to become more resilient. I hate that word. Or just needs to get on with things, or just needs to cope. And that's another thing as well. There's a very, 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 very big difference between a child coping and a child feeling safe and comfortable with an environment. And coping's not good enough. A child shouldn't be in a situation where they have to spend 6 hours, 5 days a week holding it together to cope with something that's causing them distress. And this is what they're covering up constantly. And it's not just education, it's across the board. It gets covered up. It all comes down to restricted practice. It all comes down to limitations in services. But rather than admitting it for what it is, it always ends up being spun around as parent blame, as child blame, which is even worse than parent blame, if I'm quite honest with you, and always spun around to be a family's problem. It's like when you are having a needs assessment or for a child as part of an EHCP, and an EP's done a report, but they're not allowed to share it with you until the local authority have viewed it and given an opinion on it. What's it got to do with the local authority? The local authority caseworkers, managers, quite often are not EPs. the EP should be the one producing their report within their expertise, sending it to the LA, and that should be accepted. The LA shouldn't be making or insisting on changes, because then you are asking a professional who has trained and qualified and has experience within the field to change their professional opinion of what they've learned. And I get that sometimes things are factually incorrect, and quite often parents will pick up on factual incorrections, like the wrong name sometimes is used, or something's been picked up from a report that's historic and is no longer relevant. I get that. But quite often what we see when the local authorities are involved is they're asking them not to specify provision, not to quantify provision, not to mention the type of school or point to a type of school, not to say what class sizes, not to state how long interventions need to be or specify a specific intervention. They are basically being gatekeepered into what they are and aren't allowed to, and I do sometimes wonder where that comes in on professional standards. And I also have some empathy for these professionals, because they are often themselves pushed into doing these situations, and they, lots of things can be said and happen that are not in the best interest of these professionals as well. So, it is difficult to be on the inside as a professional, as well as being able to support. And quite often when somebody's just started out in their role, you can see that they're fresh and that they're new and that they really want to work, and they've gone into it for the best interest. As time goes on, though, you can see that being eroded away as well, as the process and the system takes hold of them, which is the saddest part about it. But also, this is why we see this mass exit of professionals from NHS, LAs, etc., who go independent or even completely change their career over it all. How they can be treated and they can be ripped apart in tribunals and all of that sort of stuff can be it's heartbreaking, to be quite honest with you. I've seen ed teachers break down. I've seen professionals walk away and refuse to ever do a tribunal again because of the practices and the derogatory way they've been dragged around and their professionalisms constantly questioned. I've seen reports just lately of professionals, in particular OTs, that are being thrown out and of tribunals with nothing to counter the evidence. There's one situation where they'd produced an NHS view of the independent OT report, and the NHS had never even met the child, never mind assessed, etc. And then in the other situation that I've seen just recently, there wasn't even any countering evidence to the OT report other than the LA disagreeing with it. Yet the tribunal questioned their professionalism. And the problem with it is because we've got these new rules in that are wanting to streamline reports, and they are saying that professional reports can't be any longer than 15 pages. But then when you're in the tribunal and the questioning over the provision and the needs is being done, and the tribunals are sat there going, well, there's nothing in the report to indicate where this has come from, or how this provision's come about, or how they've made their decision, or what information it is they've come across that's helped inform this opinion. But professionals have had to streamline the reports and take some of that narrative out in order to meet the 15 pages. So then we're stuck with a situation where things aren't getting agreed because of the limitations of the page limits. Whereas if we could put in what reports, yes, they are long and they're lengthy, but they are long and they're lengthy for a reason, because our children are often quite complex, and a lot of explanation and input needs to be put into these reports for people to understand the background of where this information's coming from and why the professionals have put together these recommendations and why they're in the best interest of a child. And everything that we're doing, everything that's coming through from the government, from the tribunal right now, feels like it's just another way of watering down the system to let the LAs and the government carry on doing all of these practices that are not in the best interest of children, and it's like the whistleblower's blown the whistle, yeah. The whistleblower's come out and said what they've said, yeah. But when you look forward to the government's proposals, with the white paper and all of that kind of stuff, quite a lot of what's in these, when you look deeper and you delve into it, is legalising the LA's antics. It's allowing the LA to act as they do and deny children their SEN rights, deny children education, deny children access and equality. And remember, equality is not about every child having the same thing. Equality is about levelling the playing field. So when we talk about changing the system for one child, we're not asking to change the system for one child, right? We're asking for accommodations and adaptations to be put into the system to level the playing field so every single child has that same access, that same education access. You know what I mean? It's like, and quite a lot of the time, some of the things that could be done as an old class approach would actually benefit all children involved, not just our SEN children, and make the day so much better for our children. Yet constantly it's always looked at like, all we're asking is for more. All we're asking is for money, and changes, and for schools to adapt everything for our child. That's not the case. We're just asking you to make it fair. We are asking you to level the playing field and give our children a chance. Because when you give our children a chance and you put them into the right environments, with the right peer groups and the right support, right, they thrive, they turn into amazing individuals. Not that they are anyway, but even more amazing individuals. They are better prepped for adult life, and they use that then to create themselves a life of independence to their best of their ability, and are in the best way of being able to add to society then. Whereas if we continue to push them through situations that do not work for them, that are traumatising and damaging them, what we are actually developing is another generation of SEN children that are scared, traumatised, don't feel like they fit in the world, are not in the best place to be as independent as possible, are scared to be who they are, so therefore hide who they are, and then find themselves so stuck down this mental health spiral constantly because of all of that, that they're then unable to actually go out into the world and make a difference. And you know, the people that I come across in my line of work, the children, the young adults, are amazing, absolutely amazing. And given that right chance and the right start in the life, with how they think, how they listen, how their brain works, they would change the world given the chance. They would, and for the better. Definitely for the better. But as it stands right now, when we constantly cut, when we constantly expect the impossible, when we constantly dress up inclusion as forced compliance, we dress up forced compliance as inclusion, when we expect children to cope and just get on with things and constantly damage them, that's not going to happen, is it? At the end of the day, inclusion is not bases in mainstream schools in settings that are not suitable for every child. Inclusion is levelling that playing field and allowing a child to have an education with those around them where they feel comfortable, confident and safe, to enable that growth of all skills as well as academic skills. I'm talking about life skills, social skills. So then once they get to adulthood, they are in a better position to be in society, make that difference and show the world who they are. But if we continue to push the form of inclusion that's being spouted right now, and we continue to maintain that every child should be in a mainstream education, then we're going to continue to stifle our children, and we will continue to restrict the ability of our children going forward. And for me, that is devastation, it is limitation, it is exclusion, it's everything far from inclusion.